The topic is Spellbound in Early Childhood Education, and we're talking to the author of Spellbound, Miss Mary Williams. And of course, Miss Williams, before we had our first commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about this book, Spellbound. As a matter of fact, we've had many positive comments in reference to it, and it was the book more than anything that sort of convinced us that we ought to try to at least give our audience an opportunity to have access to this book. And I think we said earlier that it's a book about children, but it's not written for children. It's for adults in terms of how to deal with children. Let's talk. Tell us about that book.
Okay, Spellbound is a delightful collection of stories, and these stories are written on around second grade level, and it can go all the way up. But mostly, I wrote these stories to appeal to children who we might refer to as reluctant readers. And I wanted them, and when I speak of reluctant readers, I'm speaking of children on an upper grade level, like maybe 5th or 6th grade. And sometimes I have noticed in working with them that when the teacher calls on them to read, and if they have a reading problem, they just won't read. You know, they'll say, I don't want to. And then the teacher doesn't understand. They think the child is being kind of rebellious.
Difficult.
Right, yeah, difficult. And the child at that age and at any age does not want to be embarrassed in front of their peers. They don't want to hear them kind of shuffling and stuttering and trying to miss a word. And they don't want the teacher to tell them. And they definitely don't want the other children to tell them. So they want to be able to go all the way through. So when I wrote this book, it took me a while to write it because it's written in a way that all the basic sight words, of course, are employed. But when I reached the words with syllabication skills, I'd have maybe just a few words that are 4 syllables. The rest of them are maybe 3 syllables. Yet the words are interesting, vocabulary is interesting enough that would make the children, if it's something they don't understand, they could get the meaning of it from the other words in the sentence. Okay, I found out that children like dialogue. So with me being in drama, I have a lot of dialogue, and I'm good with the dialogue. And I start out with a hard punch, because when children go to the library and they pick up a book, they open it up, and they just see something, and if they don't see any dialogue on that first page, they'll put it back. But if they see something that's really catching right at the beginning of the story, then they'll go on and read the story. Now, the stories I have within Spellbound, you wonder why it's called Spellbound. Spellbound is not only do you have stories that are incorporated, that are more or less mystifying, but you also, I use the fact that I could use storytelling to spellbound the kids in a way that they would learn. So these stories are written in such a way that the children will use the same technique and be able to grasp exactly what the stories are saying. I have tried most of these stories out because I'm a storyteller. So being a storyteller by nature, I have